All right, let's talk about the backhand slice. For so many of us, it's that shot you hit when you're scrambling, kinda just a defensive little chip. But what if we started thinking about it in a totally different way? Not as a shield, but as a knife. Yeah, a precision tool that's designed to cut right through the court, mess with your opponent, and just carve out points. In this explainer, we are going to do exactly that. Turn that floaty defensive shot into an absolute weapon. So, does this sound familiar? You go for a slice, but instead of cutting through the air, it just hangs there. It's this big, looping puffball that gives your opponent all the time in the world to step in and crush it for a winner. It is, without a doubt, one of the most frustrating things in tennis. But here's the good news. It's totally fixable, and it all begins with understanding what you're really trying to do to that tennis ball. So, here's our game plan for this one. First, we're going to look at the tale of two slices, the weak floater versus the powerful knife. Then, we'll get into the physics, the secret of underspin. After that, we'll see how your whole body, not just your arm, powers the shot through the kinetic chain. Then, we'll get practical and talk about forging the knife with specific techniques. And finally, we'll unleash it and talk about how to use the slice as a weapon. Okay, first things first, we have to be super clear about what we're aiming for. See, not all slices are created equal, not by a long shot. There is a massive difference between that purely defensive chip and a truly offensive slice that really puts your opponent on the back foot. And this right here really tells the whole story, doesn't it? On the left, you've got the floater, that high, looping arc. It's slow, it loses all its energy, and it just sits up after the bounce, basically begging to be hit. Now, the knife on the right? It's the polar opposite. It's got this low, penetrating flight path. It's fast, and because of all that spin, it skids after the bounce, staying really low and forcing your opponent to dig it out. That is the shot we're building today. So to get from the floater to the knife, we've got to understand the engine that makes it all happen, underspin. And this isn't just about chopping down on the ball. No, it's about applying a very specific kind of rotation that completely changes how the ball flies through the air and, just as importantly, how it bounces. So here's the key thing to wrap your head around. When the ball is rotating backward, it creates a little cushion of high-pressure air underneath it and low pressure on top. That's the Magnus effect. That pressure difference basically acts like a tiny wing, giving the ball lift. And that lift is what allows the slice to travel on that flat, penetrating path instead of just, falling like a rock. So how do we create this magical underspin? Well, it really just comes down to these three ingredients all working together. First, your racket face has to be slightly open. Think of it as the edge of the knife. Second, the swing path has to go from high to low. You start high and you swing down and forward through the ball. And third, and this is so important, you have to make contact with the back of the ball, not the bottom. You're not scooping it up, you're driving through it, you're cutting. And the result? Well, you can see it right there. When you get those three things right, that backward spin on the ball actually makes it shoot forward when it hits the court. It doesn't bounce up, it stays low and skids away. And what that does is it just robs your opponent of time and forces them to hit a really tough shot, low and probably on the run. Okay, let's build on that. Because a great slice is so much more than just an arm motion. Biomechanical studies have shown us that the real power and control come from the ground up in what we call the kinetic chain. It's a whole sequence where your entire body gets in on the action. And it all starts right here with stability. I mean, research pretty much confirms that a stable trunk is the foundation, the bedrock of a good slice. If your core is weak or you're off balance, you're just leaking energy everywhere, and your arm has to do all the work. And that's where those inconsistent floaters come from. Next up in the chain is rotation. The real engine of the slice isn't your arm strength. It's the uncoiling of your upper body. You turn your shoulders away from the net in your preparation, and then you fire them through the ball. That's what generates all that racket head speed. It's where the effortless power really comes from. And finally, we have extension. Your arm is basically the delivery system. Its job is to transfer all that amazing energy you built up in your core and your shoulders right into the ball. A good slice has you extending your arm forward out towards your target, making sure all that force is going in the right direction. And some of the findings from sports science are just fascinating. For example, your other arm, your non-hitting arm, it's not just hanging out, it's absolutely crucial for balance. Contact point has to be well out in front so you can get that full extension. You have to get your weight moving forward, from your back foot to your front. And what's really interesting is that the slice actually requires less aggressive rotation from your trunk than a topspin shot. That's probably why it feels so smooth when you get it right. All right, theory time is over. We've talked about the what and the why. Now it's time for the how. Let's take all that stuff about spin and biomechanics and actually forge it into a sharp, reliable weapon you can use on the court. So here's a simple checklist to keep in your head. The continental grip, often called the chopper grip, is your best friend here. It just naturally sets the racket face in the right position. Your backswing needs to be high, up above your shoulders to create that high to low path we talked about. And remember that follow through. Extend out towards your target, not across your body. It should feel like you're driving forward through the ball. Let's do a little troubleshooting on the most common mistakes. If you find yourself scooping under the ball, the fix is to really focus on driving through it. If you're hitting the ball late next to your body, you've got to make a conscious effort to make contact way out in front. And if the shot feels like it's all arm, well, it probably is. The fix is to consciously use that shoulder turn and feel your weight transfer into the shot. These little tweaks make a huge difference. Okay, so we have built the knife. Now let's figure out how to use it. A great slice isn't just a pretty-looking shot. It's a tactical powerhouse that can completely dismantle an opponent's game plan. Now, check this out, because this is really compelling stuff. A study that compared how effective different strokes were among national-level players found that the slice was the most effective backhand. Yeah, even more effective than topspin. So why is that? Well, it's because its unique qualities, that low bounce, the change of pace, it just creates more problems for the person on the other side of the net. It's not about power, it's about making your opponent really uncomfortable. And the versatility of this shot is just incredible. I mean, you need to buy yourself some time. A higher defensive slice can reset the point. You want to break up the rhythm of a big hitter? A sharp knife slice will do the trick. It is the perfect approach shot because it forces a weak upward reply. You can disguise it as a deadly drop shot, and honestly, it's often the only good option you have for attaching balls that are super low. It's a true Swiss Army knife of a shot. So when it all comes down to it, the main takeaway is this. The backhand slice knife isn't just one single thing. It's that perfect blend of your body's kinetic chain, the right high-to-low racket path, and that precise contact on the back of the ball. When you get all three of those elements working together, you have a seriously formidable shot. Which kind of leaves us with one final big question. In today's game, a game that's so often dominated by just brute force and heavy topspin, could it be that the craft, the control, and the sheer tactical variety of a perfectly honed slice is actually the ultimate secret weapon? Definitely something to think about next time you're on the court.